Greetings, Mark Guerringue here, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun. And today we're doing a little bit of a ballot preview with Paul D., Deputy Town Manager, and Daymond Steer, our #1 reporter.
Thank
Paul? You. Daymond?
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. All right, so where do we start? Why don't we do a little bit of a voter's guide as to what you recommend voters do, because we have probably the longest town warrant in history, would you say?
Yeah, well, it's the longest one since I've been here. Town reports are out, so they're free. Get them at Town Hall. And what's useful about the town report for voting is April 9th, right? Coming right up.
At the town garage.
At the town garage. Is that the yellow section of the town report is this year's warrant. And there are, yes, 75 articles in this year's warrant. And the last yellow page is a tear out. And so you can sit at home over a cup of coffee or whatever and decide how you'd like to vote, make your circles, and therefore cut down the amount of time that you're reading and thinking when you're actually in the voting booth. Again, April 9th, Town Garage. Please turn out and vote.
I think it was 2 years ago, because I always go at the end of the vote and report back in the results. And it was a long ballot. We were waiting for one woman, who came in like at 2 minutes at 7. And we waited 10 to 15 minutes, and she was the one that cast the tying vote for the public restrooms.
Oh, goodness.
So, it's a good thing she showed up. Anyway, all right, so let's, we're going to kind of run through the ballot. Paul, where do you want to start? How about with the inspections? That's kind of up your bailiwick.
Alrighty, yeah. That's a zoning article. It's Article 24 in your report, and it is revisions to our existing ordinance, Chapter 72, which is minimum standards for housing. Chapter 72 was originally adopted by the town of Conway at the annual town meeting, our legislative body, in 1965. I know.
Wait a minute, aren't these the inspections we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right, this is a change to the existing ordinance, housing standards, right? The inspections, what you're referring to is the rental program, and the town is requiring, the selectmen requiring rental properties to pass a life safety inspection, and thereby we will grant them a certificate of rental compliance. There was much debate about what the selectmen were doing under their powers and authorities in various statutes. And they listened, and they listened especially to the local landlords who were both in short-term and long-term rentals.
Because this is not targeting short-term rentals. This is for
is
all rentals.
all rental property.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And prominent in that voice of local landlords was the team of Joy Tarbell and Ed Menard, because they have a company and they have a lot of long-term rentals. They predominantly own long-term rentals. And Eliza Grant, who of course is on our planning board, and Eliza and her partner Kit, the Bluebird Project, and their focus, their mission is affordable housing, long-term rentals. And so they went to the selectmen and said, listen, we support this program. We support this initiative to ensure that these properties that are available to be rented are meeting minimum life safety standards. But we don't like that the selectmen are doing it under their powers and authority, to run the town. We'd rather see you do it by the vote of the legislative body.
Now, is that a rather, or are they saying that you needed to do that?
They actually listened to town council, and I believe that they were persuaded that there were two options. As I kidded I quoted Led Zeppelin, there are two roads you can go by, right? But in the long run, there's time to change the road you're on.
Well, Robert Frost has something about that too.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Right. Whose woods these are.
But
different, yeah.
You listen to Led Zeppelin, Daymond meets Robert Frost. We have a difference in culture here.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm sure he listens to a little Led Zeppelin too.
Daymond, do you?
I'm not a poetry or a music guy, really.
Oh, okay.
Neither.
So but the town administratively started this program.
No, so they were persuaded that it was legal, which was the advice of our council. But as we started to listen to the landlords and listen to their concerns, and Eliza said, "Hey, there's this Chapter 72. When did this happen? I don't know when this happened. It didn't happen during my tenure, which is a minute or two now." So we looked back and saw, yeah, it was adopted in 1965, but it was one sentence. It was one sentence, and it says, "Does the town of Conway adopt the provisions set forth in RSA 48A:1 through 12?"
Okay, so that was the basis for them to say we should get something on the warrant this year.
Right.
Okay.
And so we got together as a group several times. Sean Bergeron joined that group, and Eliza did the lion's work. She banged it out, and we made some revisions. There were some concessions. There was some back and forth, and they presented it to the selectmen and said, "We support the program, and we prefer that we ask the legislative
Okay,
body."
so,
And the selectmen agreed.
Okay, so that's all good. That's all well and good. But the program has been in place, right?
Sort of.
The program's been in place,
And you've extended the deadline
and the deadline was extended
to what?
to fines,
24?
assuming that the voters of the town of Conway vote in the affirmative. They approve the changes, suggested by Article 70, by Article 24, Chapter 72 of our existing ordinance. If that passes, then fines for folks who don't reach out to schedule their inspection for compliance will ensue on, I believe it's April 24th.
That's the deadline. If this passes, that's
Right.
the deadline.
It's 2 weeks after we know the vote, right?
Okay, so the two questions are, what if it doesn't pass? And then what happens, if assuming it does, and it probably will, what happens after April 24th? You start sending out letters and blah, blah, blah?
Right. Which what you want to do, assuming it doesn't pass?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that one first.
So the selectman's answer to that was, it's going to pass.
Yeah, well, got to be positive.
Certainly, the people who stop me in the street, out of all these 75 articles, the ones I want to talk about are the housing standards. And
just to be clear, housing standards only in this particular case only pertains to rentals.
correct? Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
This is
Rental-
not inspecting residential homes when you build a home. We don't
Nope.
have any inspections for that.
Yes,
Except
we
for
do.
the beginning.
New construction.
We do?
We do. We started August 1st of this year.
Really?
We did.
Yeah.
And which is what I've been saying for a long time now. We've been talking about this with the selectmen, for 10 years. And going back 3 administrations now. This program of requiring rental property to meet a minimum standard was, launched hand in hand with the town of Conway embarking on inspecting new construction. Hard to believe, I know if you're watching this, but prior to August of this year, we did not inspect new construction here in Conway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always did for commercial, but not residential.
Right, correct. So they were launched hand in hand. It's really a life safety issue.
So if it doesn't
that's
pass,
simple as
what
that.
was the answer to that?
Well, so if it doesn't pass, does it not pass? If it doesn't pass by 1 or 2 votes, is that a different thing than if it doesn't pass by 80% of the voters?
Well, normally in a democracy, it's the same. You lose, you lose.
Well, the question in the selectmen's mind is, they were given advice by council that they have these authorities to run the prudential affairs of the town under different statutes, and so that still holds. So would they still try to drive that without this?
So you're saying if the town doesn't really give you a mandate, or if it's a close vote, they're going to say it is enough of a mandate to continue it.
Well, maybe.
And that's a maybe. That's a question in some selectmen's minds. I know that from speaking to them individually. I can tell you that there are those members of the board that say, if it doesn't pass, I'm done. We're not going to do it. And there are those who say, well, if it's close, we have this other option. I think it's still the right thing to do, and blah, yada yada yada. So I'm not going to predict what the board will do. I'd like to think the board is right in their thinking, that this is something the community wants. It's something that's, supported by folks such as, Liza and other planning board members, by other long-term landlords such as Joy and Ed. Staff has been advocating for it. We see the need for it, but the will of the people.
Yeah,
So let's
go ahead.
One of the things, though, even if it passes, it's likely going to run into a court challenge.
I think that's Mark's second question.
It is.
Is that right? Yeah.
We're getting there.
So,
From the responsible, from the short-term people, Daymond?
yes,
And they are
or
who?
in others.
And they are who?
They're essentially short-term rental owners, and they may have some allies in other.
And what's the name of that
capacities.
group again? The
The
responsible?
Mount Washington Valley Association of Responsible Rentals. I mean,
something like
it's a
that.
tough one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, according to the Conway Daily Sun, are you familiar with that periodical? Who interviewed their current president, Dave Cavanaugh. So Dave Cavanaugh was the president at the time we launched this program. I had reached out to him in April a year ago, giving them a seat at the table to help us, build these. And then he was not voted in again. I guess his term was up, and it was Jerry DeCristofario. And then Jerry, I'm not sure, I'm unclear for whether his term was up or he resigned, and David is back in now. And so recently, David's quoted in the newspaper, in the Daily Sun, as saying, the town can't do this and we're going to fight them. And that's been pretty consistent, from
But
there.
you've said this over and over, is that other towns do this. This is not inventing the
So
wheel.
also in that article, Mr. Cavanaugh references the Freedom decision. And I'm not an attorney, but I've read it twice, and I've had our counsel read it, and we're of the opinion that the Freedom decision and what Conway is doing, which is across the board compliance with life safety, is apples and oranges. And so we disagree with Mr. Cavanaugh on that point.
I mean, how is it different?
How is it different?
Yeah, just an example of how you.
That was an STR issue in Freedom.
Right.
And this is upholding the standards set forth by the state of New Hampshire, which the town adopted in 1965. And now we're flushing that out with the complete ordinance, which will be available, at the polls, a copy thereof. It lays out how we go about it and definitions and what's important to us and what the appeal process is.
Are there still things in
And there are
Eliza's
other communities that are doing it.
ordinances that go above and beyond what the state requires? I mean, I remember there was controversy about grills, and there are a couple
Grills
other
is
things.
the only one. Yep.
Okay.
Grills is the only thing. And in the state's code, it says that, grills can't be in an enclosed area or be in an area where there's a roof over them. This morning on my way to work, I saw 3 grills, 2 in porches, and 1 like on a deck without a roof.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Pretty standard, right? And so those are examples that would be in violation of the state codes.
But, I mean,
we went one step above and said they can't be on the deck.
I
And
mean,
that's
when it's in use or just period?
when we come and do the inspection,
Move the grill, Daymond. Move your grill.
right?
right.
I mean, let's be real about it. When we come and do the inspection, right? Owners can put up notices. They can tell their folks, but after we do an inspection, we're not there. And the reason that held is because all 3 fire chiefs, so our 3 fire chiefs for this committee were past Chief Solomon for Conway Village Fire District, North Conway Water Precinct, Chad McCarthy, and then Center Conway, which is now Center Conway, Redstone, and East Conway, Glenn Merrill. And all 3 of them felt very strongly about this issue because their calls where they're getting significant structure fires happen to be rentals with grills on decks attached to wooden structures. And so that's why we went above and beyond on that issue,
And the
because they
town,
felt strongly about it.
when the town is able to go stricter than the state, but can't be looser.
That's
is that-
correct. That's how the law is written.
All right. Okay, can we're good with that one?
Yep.
We got
Well, you
lots-
wanted to know how we go about it, what happens,
No, no,
what
no,
happens
no.
on
I'm
the
good.
24th.
Oh, no, no. You mean
Oh.
after the 24th. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, we'll start charging fines in accordance with the statute. And
And how many people have you had to register so far?
well, so far we've had about 320 out of what we identified as 1,000, which means it's probably more. But I know that Eliza, has not filed for an inspection, and she said, frankly, I'm waiting for the vote. And we understood that, the selectmen understand
Right.
that. So if you want to, we were talking about literature and poetry earlier, if we want to borrow from another parable, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, we have about a third who have voluntarily registered. Assuming that the vote passes, then we're likely to get another third. And that's going to leave,
Papa Bear.
the folks who are going to want to see what happens in litigation. And let's say we borrow from our experience in Transville Acres during Hurricane Irene, right? Transville Acres was a zoning violation for years. Past administrations never addressed it. Suddenly there was a federal declaration, we had all these dollars, and we said, okay, we're going to enforce it. And there was a third of the people that took the money and left the area, left New England, because they wanted to live places where they wouldn't freeze in the winter. There were a third that turns out they had LOMAs, map amendments, they found little areas out of the floodplain, and they did something, and they were okay. They could be there. And then there was the third we fought in court. And once we won 3, then we had a bunch of people who just said, okay, how do I?
And I would not argue, but I would say that, there's like 600 or 700 short-term rentals in town, and there's got to be 1,000 long-term rental units. There's a lot. I would say a couple thousand in total if I'm just layperson's guess
Yeah.
here, but there are a lot of people. All right, are we done with the inspections, guys?
I think so.
I
All
am
right,
if
let's
you
get-
are.
All
Yeah.
right, okay, let's
So
move
chapter
on.
24, housing standards, right?
Vote a yay.
Article
Help.
24, chapter 72.
Yeah.
You said vote a yay. I can't tell people what to vote.
Well, you can
but people
recommend.
people ask me, what are you going to do when you're in the polls?
Yeah, and what are you going to do?
I'm going to vote in favor.
There we go.
of those
No
changes.
surprise.
Yeah.
And Daymond doesn't live here. All right, let's talk about the skate park.
Alrighty.
So, is that controversial at all?
Well, it seems to be with one individual who's written an article that was
Yeah.
published in your paper yesterday.
the letter.
A letter, yeah, and he is strongly opposed to the skate park. He was, opposed to skaters and skate parks in other states where he lived in the past.
There were 2 issues. One is just sort of like, is it going to be a hangout and drug deals going to be done?
Yeah.
And the other one is a long-term maintenance of this thing. And I think it was Harrison Kanzler at the deliberative who said, or somebody said, there's basically no maintenance, but there's got to be some maintenance. And I would think that if it's trouble in years ahead, because it also says that the foundation is going to take care of it forever, right?
They were going to cede money for maintenance in perpetuity, as I believe
Yeah,
the language.
perpetuity. So that's a while. But you guys could just bulldoze it if in 20 years if it just wasn't working out, right? It's not that massive of a structure.
It's a skate park, right? What's a skate park? This is a plaza-style skate park, which means there are concrete stairs, and there are concrete tabletops, and little concrete ramps, and it's not big half pipes or big banked turns or any of that. And it's made out of concrete. We've got bridges that are made out of concrete that have been there 75 years now.
Right.
So what's the maintenance for something like that? You got to sweep it, in the spring.
Is there asphalt?
No.
What's the surface?
It's concrete.
The whole thing. It's like a big giant pad?
Yeah, well, it's a pad plus these features. Yeah, it's all done out of concrete.
Okay.
And so in time, everything degrades.
Yeah.
but 50, 70 years, right, it's concrete that's not going to be subjected to salting or plowing or, so as I said, we've got bridges that are concrete and, they're 50, 75 years old.
I think the larger issue is just trying to get the state to cede the land in a way that makes sense.
Well, this is the question, right? The state had always indicated that they were going to convey the corridor to the town of Conway. But they are defining the corridor differently than we are. They're defining the corridor is 50 feet wide in total, 25 feet either side of the center line of the rec path, which we have already built. And they came out subsequent to its construction and surveyed it, so they knew exactly where it was on the ground. And they know exactly where it is in their corridor, which was where that segment of the bypass was going to go. So for the sake of this discussion, from Hemlock Lane, which is where we access the rec path currently, phase 1, where a lot of the mountain biking, where you access trails for Redstone and the old historic quarry equipment, that's at Hemlock Lane. So from Hemlock Lane to the Townland Pudding Pond, right, to Thompson Road, that corridor, which was going to contain the highway, is 100 feet wide.
And that was on the east side of North-South Road.
That is on the east side of North-South Road.
Right. So, and just so people, I mean, Paul, you and I have been around and fought the old bypass battles, but people don't know that big line, that line of trees on the east side, all those pine trees that look like they're 20 years old, they were all planted by the state.
They were planted by the state.
And they were planted by the state as a screen for the bypass.
Between the North-South Road and the bypass.
Which seems incredible.
Right.
I mean, between Puddin' Pond and the North-South Road. There's going to be another road there,
right,
basically where the rec path is, right?
Correct.
Doesn't that seem amazing now to think there'd be another road?
Well, it seemed amazing to me at the time. I couldn't get my mind around it,
okay.
and it ultimately died of its own, insanity.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they're going to convey this 50 feet to us, which, does this. It's curvy. You've been on it.
When you say convey, you have to buy it.
Well, they indicated they were going to convey it under, the fact that there were monies and initiatives in the state for recreation, and we created this, and we used the federal grant to create it, and CMAQ and blah, blah, blah. So they were going to convey this 50-foot strip to us. And therefore, there will be remnants outside of that 50 feet of their remaining 100 feet. And we're not exactly in the middle. So their point had always been, the state's point, Bureau of Right-of-Way, was that once it's built and once we survey it and once we know where it is on the ground, then we will see if it makes sense, if there's any remnants that we can then attach, subdivide off and then liquidate. Well, as you know, it's bounded on its western edge by the North-South Road and a steep embankment, and it's on its eastern edge by the state's land known as the railway, and the railway is then bounded by Pudding Pond and conservation land. So it's been our contention that there's no useful remnant. This land that has no access is not zoned, and therefore really what they should convey to us would be the 100-foot wide. And so
including the rec path, including the skate park.
100 feet.
Yep.
That fenced in area starting at Hemlock going north.
Which includes a skate park.
Which is where we picked to place the skate park.
And has that happened yet?
It hasn't. It hasn't happened yet. We had 2 meetings, reported on this last night's selectmen's meeting. We've had 2 meetings. We're waiting to schedule a 3rd. It hasn't happened yet.
Does that mean the skate park can't happen until that happens?
That's correct. So we reached out again most recently and said, we have an article on our warrant. The skate park folks have raised their money. We are hopeful to go to construction late summer, early fall this year, 2024. Do you intend to make the conveyance in time to support this construction schedule, or will you give us permission, an easement, as you did to build the rec path? The previous commissioner, current commissioner is Bill Cass, the previous commissioner granted us authority, gave us an easement to go ahead and build the rec path in the corridor. We didn't own it then, we still don't own it, but we had this permission. So I approached right of way on it, and then the commissioner got involved, and the commissioner says, well, let's just convey it. Let's just get rid of it. We've been talking about conveying it to them forever. Let's get rid of it. And there's been some back and forth. It hasn't happened yet.
All right, so this is, anybody's been around like we have for 30 years, the bypass still kind of is a fun topic to talk about.
It is.
It is. I don't know why, but,
And there's a lot of people that come in and say, the what?
Yeah, I know, and it's like,
Yeah.
But anyway, but that corridor goes right up past, up into the Intervale. I mean, it came out, it was going to go out, I mean, there's a whole
Yep.
story behind it, but it was going to go by Cranmore, come up through Cranmore,
Right.
and kind of go where some of the new leg of the rec path is going to go.
Right.
Right, so two questions. One is that corridor still there that the state owns?
Yes.
And two is that, and this is my hobby horse, you see any possibility we could ever extend the north-south road to the Intervale?
So there's been no discussion,
I know.
and I don't see there being any movement on that during my tenure, the time I have left, these 18 months or so.
Is there going to be
So-
room with the rec path there to put the extension if it happened in the future?
So the thing about the rec path in the corridor, you said that it goes all the way to the Intervale. There were landowners who never closed the deal with the state, and so there are segments that the state never acquired.
And just to put a fine point on that, the bypass was never going to go to the Intervale anyway, right? It was going to come out where Gene Chandler's office was.
Correct.
And where the gardening place was.
That's right.
So that's
Bittersweet
before the
Greenhouse, Arthur and Suey.
Yeah,
Yep,
before the
exactly.
hospital.
Yep,
So,
that's
and
exactly
that's
right.
because of the lobbying from the Kearsarge crowd.
Well, there were lots of things in play. I mean, as you may remember, there were no less than 9 options.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
well, getting back to the warrant.
Okay, I know.
You talk about
Paul and
that.
I could do like 5 hours on that. Go ahead.
All
All right, is there any more to say on the
rec-
skate park? Are we done with the skate park?
But if
I-
it passes, then we'll just have to deal with the
Yeah,
state.
once we get authority or ownership or what have
Right.
you, that's the place that.
Are you
was
supporting that, the skate park?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, interest of full disclosure, I have children. They have skateboards. The thought of children that live in North Conway and Intervale, putting their skateboard and jumping on their bike and riding down to the skate park, or just folks driving to Hemlock, or going shopping at Settlers, or staying at these new hotels that have proximal to the skate park and the rec path.
I mean, you could take the skate park down the rec path and go there.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Damon.
So there's a rec path article
Yep.
on the warrant somewhere. Can you remind me what that does?
Well, that's interesting. It approves, it accepts the land from the state, because that's what the state had always said, and it accepts the skate park as publicly owned infrastructure. Excuse me, the rec path is publicly owned infrastructure. So originally, the rec path was not a town project, right? It was a project of the Mount Washington Valley Trails Association, which is a private nonprofit. And then they made application with the town's endorsement and the town's letter for this federal grant, this CMAQ grant. And those grants don't go to nonprofits, they go to municipalities and regional governments. And so we were awarded it, and the town said, the selectmen said, yeah, okay, we'll make this our project. And then that's when I joined the project, built the project. Originally, when they came for support, the association said, we're going to seed a maintenance fund with $300,000 so that you can then, we'll have money to maintain this in the future. The initial engineering estimates done prior to the town's involvement with the project were undervalued. And when we came to the project, we knew this was going to be the issue, and we got further, and then we opened bids, and they used that $300,000 to actually build it. The support and acceptance for it has been overwhelming. So they were faced with 2 options. Do we raise an additional $300,000 so you can seed something and have money just from the dividend income in perpetuity? Or do we ask the town if they just want to take it over and maintain it? And that's what that article does.
Okay. Daymond, what do you get?
So I think you famously said it'd be like $50,000 a year or something along those lines and you did that by dividing the budget and.
I said that a mile of road in Conway, right, cost us $50,000. Now,
To maintain.
to maintain. And how did I arrive at that number? I took the combined operating, capital reserve, expenses of the highway department, in vehicles and all, and just divided it by the miles of road we have. So on April 9th, there are 3 articles, for road acceptance. If we go from 80 miles of road to 82 miles of road, then our budget doesn't go up, right? Our cost per mile will go down to about 48,000 and change per mile of road. The rec path has more in common with a road in terms of its maintenance. You've got to cut up trees that fall across it. You've got to mow it at least once a year. You've got to sweep it in the spring. And in the future, you'll have to patch pavement and repave it. But the rec path is only 10 feet wide, whereas our average road is 22 feet wide. So loosely, you could say, into today's budget, and today's miles of road, and today's staffing, that the rec path would cost us about $25,000 a mile. And it's 3 miles.
Yeah. Although it is interesting. I mean, that's the right analysis in one sense, but it's not in the other sense, because not like you just say you added 1 more mile, doesn't cost you $50,000.
Yeah, it'll drop us down, right? Because we have overhead costs of labor. Labor is the largest part of any budget. Yeah. But when it comes time to pave it,
paving.
That paving number is in our operating budget. If you look at highway and you look at paving as an operating line item, not new road projects, which is in capital reserve, but pavement is $500,000 line item.
Yeah.
And
but paving the rec path, I mean, one, it's only half the size of a road, but it's not going to need it as quickly because you're not driving trucks and putting salt on it.
Correct.
I mean, right? It should last.
Absolutely.
I mean, in your experience, it should last like 20 years before you have to pave it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, we have roads in town, some subdivision roads in town, with lower volumes that last us 20 years. We don't redo their pavement but once every 20 years.
All right. So you got your start here in roads. That's kind of like your sweet spot. And so and there are 2 or 3 that are accepted, and I know you can speak to how that works. But the most controversial one is the Settlers Green Common Court. And the town took over the one as you face from Route 16, Barnes, what's it called?
Barnes Road Extension.
Barnes Road Extension, excuse me, by Market Basket, which Rob Arsamian at Settlers built to like highway standards up there. It's a huge road.
Yep.
And the town took that. So now the town trucks go halfway around and they have to turn around or go out the rotary, whatever.
Yeah.
But the other side, on the southern side, Rob Arsamian wants the town to take that over with a betterment. He's going to basically not pay for it up front, which is what happens in most situations. He's going to pay for it. And the reason he doesn't want to pay for it up front because he wants to make sure the town passes it.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep, that's
so
correct.
What do you think about all that?
Well, I think that your synopsis was spot on.
You support it?
I think it's something the voters have to decide. I really do. We have three road articles this year, and what's interesting about them is they're each different, right? We have the Pemigewasset, which is a residential subdivision that was.
Where is it? Just roughly where?
As you're heading east, almost leaving Conway, on Route 302, 113, it's on your right as you're eastbound. And it's a residential subdivision. It was built to town road standards. We had an inspector in attendance all the time it was constructed. It meets our current requirements. It was built to town road standards. It's all built out. So, its percentages built out is there. They're petitioning. So, typically at town meeting, as the town's engineer, I would stand up and say, this road was built to town road specifications with a town inspector in attendance, and they qualify for road acceptance. And then the voters would vote. During my tenure, every road that met the standards has been accepted.
I mean, there is a expectation that, that's part of why people pay taxes.
Right.
Is to have their roads plowed and maintained, right?
Exactly.
So,
and these folks are paying the same taxes and not getting their road maintained. So that's one. There's another road, also residential subdivision, the Southview Loop.
And where is that?
That is off the East Conway Road.
Okay.
And it is being petitioned not entirely built to town standards, not built with an inspector in residence. And so in the past we have said this is not eligible for acceptance, and the voters have turned it down. This is the third time they're petitioning, and it's no more eligible this year than it was last year or the year before. The third one is Barsamian's, which there are elements of that development around Settlers Green that are not to town road standards. And he is using the betterment statute, it's New Hampshire law, which created for this purpose, which says, okay, here's a road that's not up to standard. We don't want to pass that burden to the taxpayer. We'll pay that burden if you accept it. So if the people accept Common Court and Settlers Green Drive, they're accepting it, and then we have to hire a contractor and go get it upgraded, and that cost of construction will be paid for by a bond. So there's the principal and interest cost, and then those costs will be paid for by the abutters to the road, in this case largely Barsamian, but there is another abutter. Mullins owns a property, and they will pay for it through their taxes over the next 10 years. So,
I mean, the argument is that, I mean, the basic argument is that people say we shouldn't pave somebody's private road. I mean, so basically, you go into Settlers, that's their private driveway. But a lot of people, including I think Mary Carey Seavey said at the Deliberative that they use that road to get around. It's a cut through.
right.
So I guess that's the fundamental thing.
Well, the same argument could be made on Mountain Valley Mall Boulevard, which is actually owned by two different folks, right? The
Now, Mount Valley Boulevard is, which one's that?
goes between Route 16 and the roundabout at Hannaford,
Sure.
right? So the first half from Route 16 up to Hannaford is owned by the developers that own that mall, and Hannaford is a tenant. And then the second part is owned by the Green Granite Hotel. That's the part that's in poor condition. So is that the next road to get petitioned? Because everybody in town uses that, right, to go between Route 16 and the North-South
Right.
Road, right? So that's Rob's argument. Yeah.
And also, I kind of wonder how much better the town standard road would be than the existing Common Court. It'd be wider, and I think you said it'd be crowned differently, and that kind of for drainage.
Yeah, the drainage will be much improved. There will be better gravels underneath it. There'll be more pavement, and you know, that was built in '88. We didn't have inspectors there. Even the pavement, you know, is at question, right? We specify pavement. We send it to a laboratory. We get the paving companies to give us their specification and gradation. Not all pavement's the same, right? We then, once the pavement is placed, we take samples of that pavement and send it to a lab where they deconstruct it and compare it to the specifications to make sure it passes. We're monitoring the temperature, and we have nuclear density gauges, making sure the compaction is there. So we are a QA/QC, right, quality assurance, quality compliance outfit. And that's how, when we say it's built to town standards, not only is the right amount of gravel there and the right amount of pavement there and the right type of gravel and the right type of pavement, but it was also installed correctly.
And so, I mean, Rob Barsamian's thing, he obviously wants you to, I mean, he wants a better road for his own purposes and
Sure.
whatever. So
But he doesn't want the maintenance expenses.
He doesn't want the
anymore.
maintenance. That's fundamentally what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it this way, you know, the 1.2 or 3 million that he's going to be bonding, you know, that maintenance cost goes into that $1.3 million many, many times. So in other words, in the future, the town will pay, I don't know, $50,000, whatever it is per year, but $50,000 goes into 1.3 million a lot of times. So eventually, in the distant, you know, 20, 30 years from now, the town would be paying more, but that 1.3, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but
No.
you're getting a lot
If we
right
were-
now. If it passed, you'd be getting a lot of improvement paid for by him, and the maintenance
Right.
down the line, the maintenance costs
For
down
the
the
first
line.
10 years, after he does this, for the first 10 years, the maintenance cost to us will be mowing, sweeping, plowing, salting,
Not a lot.
right?
Right.
We won't expect pavement maintenance costs for at least, 10 years.
In the distant future, this would, if you passed it, it would cost the town more in tax money. In other words, but it would be a long way down the
Well,
road.
eventually you got to repave it.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
cost. Right.
Right.
So
That's
I
I'm
think-
saying the cost of the town would be in the future, way down the future compared to the 1.3 million that he's putting up now. Like,
Well-
by the time the town puts 1.3 million dollars worth
Well,
of work into that road, it would be a long way into the
But
future.
they're not. Not to debate this, Daymond, but it's apples and oranges there. I mean, the town would never build that road. They
Right.
would never build the road.
No,
It's
I
so-
no, I get that. That's what I'm saying. You get a big benefit now, but then by the time the town spends 1.3 million dollars on maintaining this road, that would be a long time from now.
I don't know. Okay, we can leave that there because
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Paul's rolling
I
his
think,
eyes too.
yeah, that math is a little hard for folks to
Yeah.
follow.
But I think I think voters should just decide whether it's in the public benefit
Exactly.
to have that road
That's
in
what
better
the debate
shape.
comes down to. Right?
And in some future, it's going to cost, the town's going to have to repave it. And like you just said accurately, Daymond, it'll probably be another 10 years except for some salt and some mowing,
Right.
right?
Bingo.
We're good. Okay.
Correct.
Shall we move on?
Absolutely.
What else you got, Daymond?
Solar facility
bring
at
any
the
math in.
at the dump. Right.
Yeah.
No, I hate math. So
So,
that's his thing.
this is exciting, I think. Exciting to me. We have been trying all the way back to Earl's administration to attract a solar developer to put a solar field on the closed landfill at the transfer station.
That's all those mounds up there with the
AK
pipes sticking out.
Exactly, AKA the dump, right. Those pipes allow the methane gas from decomposition to vent through the cap, which is there. That landfill is not producing much methane anymore. We are no longer getting any settlement, right? We were checking settlement monuments annually.
How much did that settle?
It was variable. Keep in mind that the overwhelming majority of that particular landfill is ash from when the incinerator used to be there, North Conway incinerator.
Oh, that's right. We had an incinerator.
Yes.
And when was that taken out?
Yes,
I mean, that was a long time
a
ago.
long time ago.
Was
before
that here?
me.
Oh, was it before you?
Yeah, a long time
I
before
don't
me.
remember that either.
So we hauled. I'm going to say it was the late '70s that incineration stopped because we have 10 years of hauling records where we paid to have trash hauled over the mountain up to the Berlin area and whatnot. And then in the late 80s, the town decided to create its own sanitary lined landfill. And I started operating that in 91, the end of 91. So the town of Conway, owns one of three municipally owned sanitary lined landfills in the state of New Hampshire. We are the smallest, and there was a lot of debate whether it would be economically feasible, economies to scale and whatnot. But it's our geographic location and the anomaly, which is the Conways, this tourist area and this essentially service community for the entire Mount Washington Valley, or Saco Valley, however you think of it, area. So if you were to take and draw a circle, at a 60-mile radius around the nearest landfills, Berlin Gorham, Rochester, and over Westbrook Way.
Bethlehem.
Yeah, Bethlehem is up there, right? Berlin Gorham,
Well,
Bethlehem.
yeah. Well, I don't know.
Right.
One's west, one's north, but whatever.
Bethlehem's a little further, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to draw those circles, those three circles, there'd be an area, the old spirograph that's not covered, and that's where Conway is. And so the cost at the time that the selectmen and the solid waste committee was studying this in the late 80s, the trend was escalating costs in tipping fees, municipal tipping fees. And the cost of trucking made it such that the town decided to build its own landfill. Again, that decision was before I got here. I got here and inherited.
Where's the
Operating.
trash go now?
our trash.
Yeah.
We bury it in our landfill on the
Okay.
East Conway Road.
Okay, so because people go to the dump, the transfer station, you see the mounds there, but that's not it. That's the old one that you're going to talk about where the solar's going, right?
That's the old one, right?
Right.
That's
Where's the new
cap-
one?
The new one is across the street. It's on Service Road, and
Is that town property?
it's town property. You can't see it
How
from
big
the
is it?
roadway. Acres.
I mean, is it bigger than the one at the town?
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, it must be. I mean, there's a lot of trash in there.
Yeah, if you'd like a tour, we'd happy to give you a tour. Take your camera sometime.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, have you ever seen it?
I haven't. No.
No, me neither.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where the trash goes. But what we're talking about here in this article is the old capped one,
Right.
which is at the transfer station, aka the dump. And what's uniquely suited about this is that all of the trees are cleared, right? Because there's this trash and there's this cap and there's drainage swales and facilities all around it. And it's on an angle to the sun. And that ridge line, runs such that it has this southerly and westerly exposure
Ridge line of the dump.
of the trash
of
heap.
the
Yeah, exactly.
And so the power goes where and who and how does the town benefit?
So, there's this philosophical argument that we all benefit because fossil fuel is problematic. So there's that. We benefit in a couple of ways, and where does the power go? So there are 3-phase transmission lines that go through there. We're proximal
Which
to
you
them,
need.
which you need
Right.
in order for any solar developer to sell power on the grid. And that's what's going to happen. We do not have a need, the term is behind the meter, right? We do not have that great a power need behind the meter at the transfer station, right? All we do there is run compactors to process our recyclables to ship to market. And heat the building. So we don't have a lot of power need versus, say, the sewage treatment plant, which built a big solar field because they're the largest power consumer in the area, right? Sewage treatment is energy intensive. So they had that need behind the meter so they can net meter. So we benefit in that we get a lease and they pay us rent for the acreage that they use. And then we get a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, based on the kilowatts that go in. And so we're looking at about $10,000, $12,000 annually of income, which is not that much. But right now it's making $0 in income. And then we look at being able to negotiate with them to be an off-taker because they get these credits if they have subscribed off-takers.
Off-taker meaning what?
Using the power. Our need is not behind the meter. If it was behind the meter, we could net meter this. It's not. So we would off-take by aggregating our power needs town-wide that are municipal. So we're about to own Conway Village Fire District, right? It's going to disband. It's going to become property of the town of Conway. So that's a sewage collection system and then a grit removal and pump station. It's pretty power intensive, right? We move sewage 3 miles up to the North Conway plant, right? So that's one of the meters that we could do. All of our buildings, all of our lights, rents, all those meters could be summed up together and we could say, okay, we're going to reserve or we're going to subscribe to this much power and we will separately negotiate a lease with them for that power so we could potentially get a savings in our power.
All right, so just so, in sort of layman's term, because we have solar here, the same PV.
But you're net metered.
Well, net metered meaning that if the power that we use, we get 100% of the benefit.
Correct.
Because we just power these lights.
As far as you don't, you get a credit.
Right, but the credit, and in the summer when we have excess power, it goes back in the system.
Right.
But we only get 75% of that credit.
Yep.
That's the way New Hampshire works.
Right.
So that's what you're saying is that
Yep.
you're not going to be able to use it immediately. You pump it back in the system, but then you can negotiate a lower rate
With this developer.
with the developer.
So this developer is a company called Kearsarge Energy. The owner, the founder, one of the partners, came here as a kid. Their family always hiked Mount Kearsarge, and so he named it, Kearsarge Energy. And what's unique about this particular company, because it's not the first company we've worked with, is they're the only one who actually has projects that were built on landfills in New Hampshire.
They got to be. I'm sorry, but they got to be stable for one thing.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, they can't be. I mean, if you're literally
Right.
on the mound,
Yep.
I mean, they can't just.
Well,
be,
our mound has proven to be stable because it's been capped now for 20 years better. And it's interesting you bring that up because at the time, myself and the consulting engineer was looking at the state standard cap. And we felt it was not stable. And we made an argument and we were granted the permission to do an alternate cap as a demonstration project. In June of 99, we had a 12-inch rain event here in the state. And I remember because we were building phase 2 of our active landfill. And it was a little bit tense for a while there because, you know, that was a lot of rain. Well, the state engineer, Mike Guilfoy, now retired, called me and said, how are you doing? I'm like, we're okay. And I thought he meant the new construction. He was referring to the old cap landfill. He goes, and the old cap? I was like, it's fine. Why? He goes, 3 caps slid in the state because they got saturated.
Wow.
all right.
yeah.
So the bottom line of
It's
this.
stable.
Okay, it's stable. So the bottom line of this is this is not going to cost taxpayers any money.
$0.
I think I do want
It is actually a revenue
to
generator.
interject.
Okay.
It
The
could
budget,
save us money.
the-
if,
Yeah.
budget committee is against this.
yep.
And can you remind me, I think it has something to do with they think there's a better deal out there or a possibility of a better deal. Is that basically,
Yep.
Is that what it is?
I think,
Oh, I didn't know
if
that.
memory serves.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I can't explain that,
Yeah.
why they're not for it. You know,
They're cranky. They're a cranky bunch.
you know,
They-
they think there's a better deal out there. This is the 5th company I've tried with, and the only time we've gotten this far. And so I'm here to tell you that if there's a better deal out there, I didn't find it over 10 years.
all right. And how big? Just to give people a sense of scale.
About 1.5 megawatts is what they're looking
Okay.
at.
How many how big is the array? Like when you go there, you're going to see the whole thing is going to be shrouded in
No, because some of it faces
north.
north
Right.
and east, and so typically we don't do that. So figure about half of that, the far side, not the side
Like
you
an
see.
acre or 2 or 3 acres?
Oh, more like 6 acres.
Okay.
So the cap covers 11 acres, and what we have in concept drawing and the way it wraps around and the angles, we figured it's going to be at least 6 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we only have 7 minutes left. I wanted to get to the Charter Commission, but Damon or Paul, do you have anything you want to?
I had a particular Charter Commission question.
Okay. Can we talk about?
We can, if I can answer it, great. I wasn't part of the Charter Commission. but-
No, I think this is something in your bailiwick. So,
Okay.
Okay.
one of the powers that the Charter Commission proposes to give a proposed town council would be to bond up to $2 million. And, you know, you're an infrastructure guy. Can you think of a scenario where, or have you run into a scenario in your tenure at Conway where bonding $2 million would have been like a really good idea?
Fortunately, no. We didn't have any. The only time I can think of that would be in something catastrophic. You know, and of course weather is changing. It's getting more intense. Right? Our joke is, what do you call the 100-year storm? The 10-year storm.
Right.
Tuesday.
Right? Tuesday. Exactly. But you know, let's think out of the box here a little bit. You know, I live on the west side, and we have not been able to come and go from the west side, you know, 3 times now in the last, you know, year,
Yeah.
right? And so we have this project that we're looking at, seeing the feasibility of elevating so that we, you know, flood-proof it, right? What if a tree comes down the river and takes out one of the bridges? You know, it's not likely that we're going to get a container ship taking out a bridge on the Saco, right? But a tree seems pretty possible, you know. What if we lost the covered bridge and it went down and then took out the next bridge? Now, these are state bridges, right? So they would, you know, they would fund that road restoration, but we have water and sewer infrastructure, which is supported by those bridges. You know, that's going to be on us. So that, in an emergency situation, that could be a useful tool.
Yeah. And I'm on the Charter Commission, so I wanted to say that. and I'm a big supporter of it. But the concern about the 2 million, which I think is misplaced, and this is a political question for you, Paul, and you've been through many administrations, is that they're going to, if you give the council or anybody $2 million, they're going to spend it willy-nilly. And I say the town selectmen and the school board have surpluses every year that that have been approved and they could spend.
Yep.
But they don't, because they just don't do it. I mean, they're
don't want
responsible.
to be irresponsible.
Right. So I guess my question is, is that a concern to you that a future town council would just, buy sports cars or spend it on something that's not in the town would approve of?
The direct answer is no, it's not a concern of mine.
Yeah.
I can understand people's apprehension, right? Government internationally has given folks plenty of reason for concern. I can also say, fortunately, that here in Conway, it's now over 3 decades that I've enjoyed working for the town. We've never seen any of that.
Yeah. And what do you think about the going from whether it's a town council, and of course the big part of the whole charter commission is we have revised the charter itself, which is a major thing, hadn't been done substantially since 1765 when the town was founded. So it needed to be done, period. And it's kind of like the master plan, at some point you just got to
need updates.
You got to get it out there. But what do you think politically of going from 5 to 7? In this case, it would be councilors, because you only can have up to 5 selectmen.
Right.
And you have to go to this
Change,
town
yeah.
council system.
Yeah.
I mean, you think we need more? I mean, that's part of the argument is better representation. There's a lot of work to be done, spread out the workload.
I will tell you that I'm in favor of a town council form of government, because I think you can work, you're more agile, and we can respond, right? And we don't have to have so many things decided by the legislative body, which, since we're a town meeting form of government, only happens once a year. So that's not terribly agile, right? Changing conditions. So I have been in favor of a town council form of government. I've lived other places where there have been councils. And so then you break up town into districts or wards, and it's not just 5, by way of example, we have 5 selectmen, they're all from Conway.
Right.
Right.
Conway Village.
You'd have to get them.
Porter's North Conway, isn't he?
Kind of.
Well, where he grew up versus where he lives right now. He's geographically in the, not in the North Conway precinct where he lives. But anyway, and I think that's a good idea, right? Because you've got representation spread around. And so I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of them being able to make these financial decisions up to that amount, and therefore having the town meeting requiring larger bond articles going to town meeting. $7 million for police station, 10 million for school, what have you, that type of thing.
And the 2 million is really for emergencies or opportunity.
Right, exactly. That's the agility I'm talking to.
But it's not just so people aren't
I'd be in
confused.
favor of a council who had that authority in spending. I'd be in favor of not having a budget committee, which I know is not popular.
Right.
And that's not part of what was proposed.
Right. So I just want to be clear, is that the charter committee is only talking about reducing the number of the budget committee from 17 to 13 members, because they're not filled anyway.
Right.
And also there are no districts.
Right.
I mean, this is 7 at large.
Right.
And then the $2 million bond, it requires 5 out of the 7 councilors, so it's not even it's a super majority.
Right,
So there's control there.
Yep.
So you're in favor of the charter commission as it stands, as it's written?
I'm undecided. I'm going to keep that one to myself. I would have liked seen the more sweeping change, to be honest with you. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I know I'm in the minority on that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and I guess that comes from being staff and seeing, what's changing and out there, and how hard it is. And something that most people don't understand is that municipalities only have the powers given to them by the state. And in New Hampshire, we don't have a lot of leeway. It's very difficult to govern, actually. And so anything that gives you, more agility, because conditions are changing quickly. Look what happened in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was interesting. I ran into Janine Bean, Mark Council's sister, and she said, "Oh, you guys should have recommended a mayoral city council. I said, holy smokes, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah,
All right, Paul, we're
yeah.
basically out of town. You have a last word or last advice for our viewers?
Well, advice, not advice, a request. Please come out and vote. I'm fond of quoting.
Led Zeppelin.
Well, that too, but
Robert Frost.
well, you name the person. The quotation is, "America is a country that will cross the ocean to fight for democracy, but won't cross the street to participate in it."
Wow.
So please cross the street and drop me an email if you know who it was who said that. Thank you
Okay,
for
Paul,
the time.
Thank you very much, Daymond. Always
Thank
pleasure.
you.